Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about understanding that high protein intakes will really help you dramatically in any of your body composition goals, in the sense that it gives you a lot more wiggle room and it just makes things easier. So, when people start coming up with these ideas of, hey, what's the minimum amount of protein I need to gain good muscle, it's kind of asking the wrong question, because it absolutely limits your results in a lot of ways. And the reason for that, because high protein intakes do other things besides just help you gain muscle. Okay? And in fact, when you're in a calorie surplus, gaining muscle doesn't oftentimes require as much protein as people think it does. Okay? So that's why it's the wrong question. What people should be asking is, how much protein should I be consuming if I want to make losing body fat easier? How much protein should I be consuming if I want to gain less fat when I'm trying to bulk and gain muscle? How much protein should I be consuming if I want better connective tissue recovery to make all of this easier as I start to get a little older? All right? You guys see all these other things? There's all these other metabolic benefits to increasing protein. There really are. And again, this is why when I hear certain people, I'll hear vegans point this out, for example. Well, people overhype the amount of protein you need to gain muscle, and it's like, well, they're right. They are technically right. Okay, and I'm not saying that I'm promoting veganism here, because I don't promote any of the isms or any specific diets at this point. I think a lot of them are tools that can be a useful tool. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Meaning intermittent fasting, keto, vegan, vegetarian, whatever your approach happens to be. Look, if it works for you, I'm not going to be dogmatic about it. Okay? If it's what you need, just don't pretend it's the be-all, end-all. These are valuable tools, and in some cases, they may be great tools for certain things. But, they're not always the be-all, end-all by any means, and they aren't. But one of the things it really is, that I will say is almost a cheat code, is to just keep your protein high. And I'm going to say that is one of the keys that people find that makes so many different dietary approaches successful, is one I've always told people: eat a lot of protein and eat lots of vegetables. Okay. In fact, I will go so far as to say that if you pull those two things off, any of these approaches can work very, very well, because you've covered the most important thing. That's where people mess up. Is it important to flexible diet and moderate? Is it important to do low carb and a keto? Is it important to do a vegan diet? All these things that people worry about are asking the wrong questions, because if you cover the other thing, you've got the most important part. It is going to be easier to recover and to have better body composition. But protein really is one of the things that's almost a cheat code. And I'm not saying this to support the supplement industry. I don't think that it's necessary to supplement protein powders to get really high protein intakes. Can it be a useful tool? Let's come back over to that other point. Could it be a useful tool, though? Yeah, it can be a useful tool. And I'm not going to knock it, because it can absolutely be a viable method to get your protein intake up. And I think that's undeniable. It's just not necessary. You can do it through Whole Foods. Okay, you can do it through Whole Foods. And of course, with modern protein sources available, all the soy and tofu, and then of course powders and things, it actually makes even vegan diets more viable today. So that's kind of the whole point. With what's available for protein sources, you can get away with any of these approaches. But we need to come back and understand it really is the high protein intake. Okay, that is the key. Because when you increase protein, it allows you to make leaner gains when you're bulking and gaining muscle and gaining body weight. Look at the protein overfeeding studies that we have. Okay? When people protein overfeed, they tend to lose body fat even if they're gaining muscle. And I'm not talking eating 200 grams. We're talking in that 300, 400 plus gram range, grams of protein a day range. But the limited amount of data that's looked at it has been pretty consistent been pretty dang consistent across the board. So it would be one thing if it's like, well, a third of the test subjects. No, it's like 100% of the test subjects. It's like 100% in some of these studies. And I personally know one of the people who's been involved in some of the research. Not hung out in person, but I have video called with them before. Someone who's involved in that research. Yeah, it's pretty consistent. Do we need more data on it? Sure, absolutely. But the limited amount we have has been pretty consistent. So that tells you something about really high protein intakes, doesn't it? We tend to lose body fat. And again, when I say protein, everyone, they hear that and they start saying, well, these are problems with a high protein diet, this or that. But nobody told you to eat those foods. They're like, well, your dietary cholesterol and fat might be too high. Well, no one told you to eat fat. And this is the thing that people don't get. And I want people to step back and think about this. And it's crazy to me when doctors or someone make that response. It's like, you're a medical doctor and you don't know that fat and protein are completely different things. Let's not even talk about medical school. How did you pass freshman biology without knowing that protein and fat are not the same thing? How did you finish a freshman biology class without failing it? I'm struggling with this one. Like, well, because high protein. No. High protein foods are not high fat. High fat foods are high fat. There's a million sources of protein that have almost no fat in them, so just stop. If your protein's too high, your carbs will be too low. Well, why don't you eat carbohydrates? No one told you. No one told you not to eat carbohydrates when we discuss high protein. It's like no one told you to eat. Like no one said this. And it's shocking that people don't get it. I don't understand sometimes the chain of logic. It's kind of like when people can't comprehend in some stuff. Sorry, I'm getting on a side tangent here. But I just feel it's the same thing. Anytime people discuss a lower fat diet, they automatically go to sugar. Because obviously table sugar and fats are the only foods in existence. Chicken, rice, vegetables, none of that stuff exists. Like no one's ever, it's never been invented. Real foods, no, that's it. Refined sugars and fats are the only things that exist in the universe. It's laughable. It's like, if some of those things weren't produced by the food industry, none of us would starve. There'd still be plenty of food. All right, but back over to the point. The point is high protein intakes make it easier to control body composition. They just make all your body composition goals easier. It's a cheat code. Just do it. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.